Okay, so welcome to Prolific Shooting Exposed, which is the main DVD in your package and maybe the most important one that you're going to watch in the entire package. And the reason for that is it sets the foundation for everything that you do, number one, in your program, and number two, it sets the foundation for everything you do on the floor as a shooter. Now, when I was in, I think I was going into grade 10, and I had the opportunity to go to a 5-star camp, and it was a shooting specialty camp, and I ended up winning a few awards. So one of my rewards for winning one of my awards was to talk to the head coach, the guy who kind of ran everything and instructed us the entire, I think it was a 3-day camp, so instructed us for the full 3 days. And I still remember one of the things that he said to me. I talked to him for about 35 to 40 minutes, and one of the things that he said to me was, shooting isn't hard, but it's complex. Okay, it kind of sounds like philosophy. Shooting isn't hard, but it's complex. And let's just think about that for a second, because shooting isn't hard in the fact that it's simple. You put the ball in the basket in the most efficient way possible, obviously, but it's complex because there's a lot of little things that we have to focus on in our shooting. And the fact of the matter is we cannot be focusing and thinking about those things while we're on the floor. They have to come second nature. They have to come naturally. Okay, so when we're pulling up on a defender, we can't think about the footwork. We have to just do it. It has to be second nature. So my goal with this DVD is to expose all of those things that we have to focus on so that you can focus on them during your training program, the 16-week program, and that way they'll kind of come second nature to you when you actually finish the program and get onto the floor and start playing. You'll find yourself doing these things just automatically, and they'll come naturally. Okay. So to illustrate these points, let's start off by watching a video of my 3 top prolific shooters of all time, and take a look at that video. See if you can notice 5 common things between each of those shooters, and then we'll come back and we'll expose those 5 things, okay? So take a look at the video. that video. Maybe you agree with my 3 choices, maybe you don't. But either way, I guarantee if you took out one of those players and just inserted whoever your favorite shooter is into that mix, they would still have those 5 common factors. And we're going to list them right here, and then we'll break them down and really get into them, okay? So those 5 common things, I hope you saw them. Number 1 is their stroke. And I know my marker is not great today, but as long as you can hear me, hopefully we can get this across. So number 1 is their stroke, their mechanics from the ground up, their footwork, and their shooting form is absolutely perfect, okay? I shouldn't say perfect. No shooter's form's perfect, and actually Reggie's is far from perfect, but for their body and for their stroke, their mechanics are perfect, okay? And obviously they're well worked on. So number 1 is their stroke. Number 2 is their ability to create space. I'm just going to go in short form. Create space, off, dribble. Okay, real messy, but you kind of get the idea. We'll get into all these in detail later. So number 2 is creating space off the dribble. They can all get their shots off by creating space off the dribble. Okay, number 3 is creating space off screens. Real short form, real messy, but they can all create space off screens, and we'll talk about exactly how to do that. There's only 3 ways to do it, so pretty interesting. Number 4 is their quick release. All right, so each of their releases allows them to get their shots off really, really rapidly against great NBA defenders. So very, very important quality for you to have as a prolific shooter, and we'll talk about that. Number 5 is their unlimited range. They can step back, and their defenders know that they can step back, so they're very, very dangerous. But they can go back 30, 35, 40 feet and knock down shots, which makes them a very, very prolific, dangerous, respected player on the basketball. So range is number 5, okay? Range. All right, so let's get into each of these factors. Let's really dig down and talk about what makes up each of the factors, what you need to do, what you need to focus on, and how to implement them into your game, because that's what really matters, okay? So number 1 is going to be stroke, and I think the best way to actually teach this and go over it is in a presentation that we put together for you, and we'll detail everything you need to know about your shooting stroke. So take a look at that presentation. We'll be back at the whiteboard afterwards to talk about the other 4 prolific shooting principles, but for now, let's get into the stroke. Okay, so let's talk about mastering your stroke as a prolific shooter. And this is really the foundation for everything that we're going to do within the program. This is everything you need to focus on while you're doing your 16-week program. So really, stroke comes down to only 2 different things. And we're not just talking about shooting form, we're talking about 2 different things. So first of all is our mechanics. And we need to make sure that our form and our mechanics from the ground up, from our feet up to our follow-through, is more or less perfect. Obviously, no shooter's mechanics are going to be perfect, but we need to make them as perfect as they can be for our individual body. Now, this goes well beyond the beef principle, and in my opinion, the beef principle, if you've heard balance, elbow, eyes, follow-through, is pretty much BS. And obviously those principles are true, but at the same time there's a lot more to focus on, and just saying beef when you're instructing shooting is kind of, it's a little bit redundant, and it doesn't really cover everything that a real prolific shooter needs to know. So mechanics are the first thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to stroke. The second thing is footwork, and most people don't think of footwork when we're thinking about stroke, but it's actually the foundational principle that our stroke is built upon, okay? So we need to get our footwork down right before we can, obviously that's the foundation, right? Our feet are the first point of contact with the ground, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And again, there's only 2 methods to be concerned with when it comes to footwork, but we will get into those. So a couple key principles before we get started talking about our stroke.
Number one is automation. And what I mean by automation is your stroke has to be the exact same every single time, and it also has to basically be automatic. Okay, so when you're in the game, like we talked about, you can't be thinking about it. It has to just come second nature to you, because otherwise you're just going to make decisions too slowly, and you're not really going to be able to react to the defense and really become a long-term great shooter. So automation is the first principle. So having our stroke be automatic and the same every single time, whether we're shooting from 15 feet, 30 feet, doesn't really matter. Now, second of all, there can't be any power leaks in our entire stroke. So from the ground up, everything has to be as efficient as possible. Every little piece of our mechanics have to be as efficient as possible to have no power leaks, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, this comes down to a direct line of accuracy, and that's the best way to ensure that you don't have any power leaks and you get the maximum shooting power that you possibly can get, which will be the most efficient process for our mechanics. So we'll talk about all this in detail. I just want to overview a couple of those key principles, so keep them in mind as we're going through this video. And keep in mind as well that no one's mechanics are perfect. You saw in that video of the 3 top prolific shooters, no one's mechanics are perfect. Reggie Miller's mechanics aren't perfect. J.J. Redick and Ray Allen both have different mechanics. So if there was one definition of perfect, neither of them would be it. But at the same time, for their body, for their stroke, for all the work they've put in, that's about as perfect as it can get, and they're obviously great shooters because of it. So don't worry if you get one little thing out of place. Just make sure that all the foundational principles are in place and that you're not practicing bad habits, you're practicing good habits, okay? So focus on all these principles as you're doing the 16-week program. Now, first of all, I want to talk about mechanics, and before we get into mechanics, let's just take a look at a quick video. You can look at my mechanics, not that my mechanics are perfect by any means, but take a look at my mechanics and see what you can take away from that, and then we'll get into each of the key factors in shooting mechanics. So that's the way I found it kind of works best. That's what most of our students like, when we show a quick video and then we talk about the video. Show another quick video, talk about the video. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's get into the mechanics video. Okay, awesome. So let's talk a little more in depth about what we saw in that video. And I have some screenshots that should help out. So first of all, the number one mistake in mechanics all come from the feet, okay? So the number one mistake comes from the feet, and most players have what I call Kobe Bryant syndrome. They don't really square up their feet to the basket, and they actually have them on a diagonal angle pointing left. And obviously, when your 10 toes are pointing to an angle that's not towards the basket, so if your 10 toes are pointing to the left, the ball's going to go to the left. Okay, so we want our 10 toes pointing toward the basket, and we want our feet roughly shoulder width apart. This is probably the least important principle, the shoulder width apart, but that's just a basic guideline. You're going to know better than I will what you feel comfortable with, okay? So use what you feel comfortable with when you're shooting. Now, again, 10 toes is the most important thing. We want our feet pointed at the basket. This is a really obvious concept, but it's something that a lot of players mess up. Okay, and the other thing is we have one foot slightly in front, and this is called the power foot principle. Okay, and I kind of I adapted to this principle when I got injured. I got injured and had a hip surgery actually during my grade 12 season, and this kind of changed the way I looked at shooting, because I began watching those 3 players in particular that we showed the video of, and I noticed they all had this power foot that went in front. So the reason for the power foot is because I used to just be a player who lined up my feet basically the same distance from the basket. So they were both lined up and square. But the reason for the power foot, for that one foot maybe an inch or two in front of the other foot, is because your shooting side elbow, the elbow that you're, if you're right-handed, you're going to be shooting with your right hand, so your right elbow goes out in front of the body. And we want to create a direct line of power, so a direct line of power from our foot into our elbow that will travel through the ball and direct the ball towards the basket. So we want that one foot slightly in front to give that direct line of power from the foot to the knee to the hip to the shoulder, through the elbow into the ball, and send the ball to the basket and put it in. So that's why we have that one foot slightly in front. Very, very important. Okay, so the next key, and keep in mind the follow principle. So every link upwards in the chain is going to follow the link below. So in this case, the knees are going to be the next in the chain, and they're going to follow the feet. So if the feet are out of line, the knees are going to follow the feet, and they are also going to be out of the line. Okay, so again, our knees are over top of our feet. And the biggest problem that I see most often in most players is wobbly knees. And wobbly knees basically represents the term knock knees. Okay, so if you're familiar with knock knees, some people, when they squat down to jump, their knees travel inwards to the midline of their body, and they get knock kneed. And this puts so much pressure, tremendous pressure on the medial ligament of the knee, and you'll get repetitive stress injuries and all kinds of knee pain and problems if you do this. And it also kills your shooting power. There's no more direct line of power because the knee is a power leak. And again, we want to take away all the power leaks in our shot. So if you do have knock knees, make sure that you're bringing them out and straight in line with the feet, so that the feet form a line straight up the leg into the hip through the knee. Okay, so it always has to be a straight line. Okay, again, the straight line of power is when your foot contacts the ground, the power travels up through your lower leg into your knee, and then through your upper leg, your thigh, into the hip. And that's where we go from there and travels upwards into the ball. Okay, so moving on, the next link up the chain, as you can probably guess, is the hips. So this goes beyond the beef principle. There's more than 4 things we have to focus on. We have to focus on every single little link in the chain. So from the feet to the knees to the hips. And again, with the follow principle, they will follow the chain that is lower. Okay, so they'll follow the knees, which follow the feet. So everything starts at the feet. So essentially, your hips are going to follow your feet. Okay, so make sure that you're getting that one point of contact with the ground absolutely perfect and squared up, and all 10 toes are pointing towards the rim. Because if they don't, everything up the chain is going to be thrown off. So again, the hips follow the feet. And our goal is to make the hips square with the basket and as square with the basket as the feet are. Now, again, this points the ball directly where you want it to go. If the hips are, if you have Kobe syndrome and the hips are kind of drifting off on a diagonal and they're pointing towards the left, the ball's going to travel towards the left because that's where you're aiming your body, which aims the ball. Now, moving up the chain, the shoulders are going to follow the hips. Again, it's the follow principle, right? So your shoulders always follow the hips, which follow the knees, which follow the feet. So we need to make sure, again, that the feet are lined up and all 10 toes are pointing towards the basket. So when we get that right, the knees will follow the feet and be correct, and then the hips will be squared up, and then the shoulders will be squared up. And the shoulders are really, really important because the shoulders essentially aim the ball. Okay, if your shoulders are turned, you're gonna have to basically tilt your elbow and move your arm outwards away on an angle from the basket to aim the ball, which you don't want. So you want everything to line up and be square to the basket. Again, square to the basket. And again, what we are focusing on is making all this power, all this this direct line of power from our feet through the ground. We're trying to make it travel into the ball. So our next point of contact with the ball is our grip, okay? So there's a concept I'd like to talk about called the shooter's tee, and you can see it in that first picture. The shooter's tee is basically when your two thumbs form a T on the ball. So your shooting hand is on the seams, and your trail hand, your guide hand, which is in my case my left hand, which is going to be your offhand. So if you're right-handed, it's going to be your left hand. If you're left-handed, it's going to be your right hand. But in any case, it's only going to guide the ball. It's not going to shoot the ball. You're shooting the ball with your strong hand. But you've obviously heard that 100 times before, so I don't have to talk about that too much. But again, that's the shooter's tee. It's pretty self-explanatory in that picture. Now the other thing is that we're controlling the ball with our finger pads, and we want to be controlling it fairly tight, okay? And I say tight a little bit hesitantly because you don't want to, squeeze the ball till it pops, but at the same time you do want to have good control over the ball. So experiment with different grips on the ball, and when in doubt, always grip it harder than not, because you always want control over the ball above all other things. So again, our palm in the lower picture is never touching the ball, right? You can slide you can slide a full finger under there because we're giving it that space, and we're only touching the ball with our finger pads. So if you have a ball near you, go ahead and take that grip on the ball and see how it feels for yourself. If you don't have a ball, go ahead and pause the video, get a ball, and feel that grip for yourself, because that's the only way that we're really going to make improvements and get this point across. Okay, so if you don't have the ball, go ahead and pause it, grab a ball, and we'll come back to the next slide. Good. So I hope you've taken a quick feel on the ball and seen how that that feel actually works with you, and how tight you have to grip the ball. So the next chain in our series of each body part is kind of a link in the chain, right? From our feet to our knees to our hips to our shoulders, and then our grip is a point of contact with the ball. But the elbow guides the ball, okay? So your elbow has to form that direct line of power, that direct line of precision from the foot, and it's a direct line through the ground into the ball. So that elbow, if someone was to draw a line from up the ground through your forearm, that elbow has to draw a straight line, okay? So that's the most important thing, and it's like every single coach has told you to do in the past: tuck your elbow. I don't have to say it, I probably don't have to say it twice because you've all heard it a million times, but again, you need to tuck your elbow in and create that shooter's pocket, okay? So the shooting pocket is something that every single great player has in common, and if you take a look at, just for example, in my picture on the right, I form a shooting pocket with the ball, with my upper arm, my forearm, and my hand that cradles the ball. It develops kind of a C formation. So the lower arm and the upper arm are in about an 80 to 90 degree angle, and you don't want to go too far outside that range, because if it's either going to make your shot long or short. So that's about the optimal angle. So if you look at that picture, that's the angle you want your upper and lower arm to form, and then obviously you have your hand cradling the ball, which completes the C. Okay, so now moving on from that shooting pocket, which is very, very important. Every single great shooter has it, so you do need to make an effort to actually develop that, because obviously you want to become a great shooter and a prolific shooter. But everything we've been doing so far, setting up that direct line of power, that direct line of precision, is all culminating in our follow through, okay? And this is basically the icing on the cake. And again, I'm going to state the obvious, flick your wrist. Every single coach has probably told you that hands in the cookie jar principle. That hand is, you pretend that you're dipping your hand in the cookie jar, you're reaching for that last cookie that's up on the shelf, and so your wrist is flicked and you put some spin on the ball. I probably don't have to go into this because every single coach has probably drilled it into your brain a million times, but again, you do need to flick your wrist. And again, with that direct line of precision, we're creating a line from our foot. So from those 10 toes, think of creating a line from your big toe, from the tip of your big toe to the tip of your strong hand index finger. So, for example, I'm right-handed, so it's going to be my right big toe and my right index finger. And we want to create a very straight line, as straight a line as we possibly can, with no, no zigzagging, no power leaks. And we're going to let the ball roll off our index finger, and that index finger is pointing at the basket. So if you've ever seen Larry Bird shoot, he does this really well, and that's one of the great pure shooters of our time. He, or actually probably before our time, he was playing in the early 90s and the 80s. But again, the index finger is the finger that the ball rolls off of, and you'll get much greater accuracy shooting in that way. Now, the neck is something that's my biggest problem. And when I went to five-star shooting camp, that was the one thing that the head coach tried to get across to me, that my neck had to, my neck had to be straight, and it had to form a straight line with the rest of my spine. And as you can see, if you take a look at that line of blue that's above my head, my neck isn't quite in line with that. It's tilted up, but our the goal that we're after is like we're standing on air, okay? So if someone was to pick us up by the head, kind of a graphic example, but if someone was to pick us up by the head, our spine would just kind of hang there in a perfect straight, not straight line, but a perfect curved line for our spine, and our head would just be, as if we're standing. It's not tilted back, it's not tilted forward, it's just straight up and down, and that's how you want it to be. So again, no shooter's form is perfect. Mine is obviously not, because my neck is tilted back, and I do that a lot. It's kind of a bad habit, but at this point in my career, it's hard to change because I've shot thousands and thousands and thousands of shots, so it's a little bit hard to change at this point. But I highly recommend trying to focus on keeping your head and your neck straight. So the second piece of the puzzle when we're talking about stroke is our footwork, and we kind of ran through the mechanics portion because it's really simple, and you've probably heard it a million times from every other coach. But just keep in mind those big foundational principles, and it's really not that hard. Again, shooting isn't hard, so don't worry too much if you get one little thing off, but focus on those foundational principles when you're doing your 16-week program. Now, when it comes to footwork, it's even easier to kind of focus on, because there's only two methods of footwork really, and that's the 1-2 step and the hop step. And the hop step would probably be more accurately called the drop step, but the drop step most players think of as a post move, so I'm not going to use the word the drop step, but we'll get into why a little bit later, okay? So first of all, the 1-2 step. We're going to show a video right now of just one of my workouts. I was actually in the gym the day after a game because I wasn't shooting very well off screens. So because I wasn't shooting very well off screens, I missed, I think, 4 or 5 threes coming off a screen. I was getting quite a few plays run for me off those screens and just didn't deliver on the shot. So I was in the gym and decided to take a little quick video of a 1-2 step, because sometimes I use a 1-2 step off screen. So in any case, take a look at this video and then we'll come back and talk about it like we did last time. Okay, so like you saw in that video, the 1-2 step is obviously very quick. It's easy to change directions and rip through because your first foot down becomes your pivot foot. So if I'm going to the left, let's say I'm trailing to the left and my right foot goes down first, which it should because your inside foot always goes down first on the 1-2 step. So my right foot goes down first and then the left foot trails through. I can easily create my pivot foot on my right foot. My right foot becomes my pivot foot. So I can easily change directions and rip through and rip the ball through and carry my left foot through and beat a defender off the dribble. So that becomes a really, really valuable move to make. So the 1-2 step is very, very simple. It's not a complicated concept to learn. The inside foot goes down first, so if you're going to the right, your left foot's going to go down first and your right foot is going to carry on through. If you're going to the left, your right foot goes down first and your left foot comes through. But really easy concept to understand. Most players mess it up by putting their outside foot down first, which is a big mistake because a good defender is going to close that gap and actually cut off your inside foot. So you have to get the inside foot down first before the outside foot. That's the biggest key in the 1-2 step. Now the hop, or as I more effectively it would be called the drop, but again we can't really call it a drop step because that's a post move. So the hop is a little bit different. I see Ray Allen do this quite a bit. They take one step on the inside foot and then they hop with both feet, or sorry, they hop on that one foot and land on both feet. So take a look at this video and then we'll come back with a few keys for the hop step. So obviously the hop step's quick, but only if you do it right. And a lot of people, they actually do hop, like it's called. And this is why I don't like the term the hop step. They hop and they get too much air. So if you're hopping off one foot and you're carrying through and spending some time in the air, you're doing it wrong. You should be dropping. So so after you come off that one foot, you're just going to drop down into the squat position, okay? So it should be very, very quick. For me, actually, this is my go-to because I do it a lot quicker than I do a 1-2 step. So I prefer to hop or well, drop because it just works better. And it's not as quick when you're going to change direction and actually beat a defender, but so the 1-2 step would actually be more effective. Now, a key point to keep in mind is that your hop foot becomes your pivot foot. And a lot of players travel because they hop with their right foot, or let's say for the sake of the example, we're going to hop with our right foot. So we hop with our right foot, land on both feet, and we use our left foot as the pivot foot, and we pick up our right foot, and that's incorrect. Okay, so we have to make sure that we pick up our we have to pick up our left foot if we're coming off our right foot. So we hop on our right foot, okay, and land on both feet. We're going to pick up our left foot if we actually have to transfer and beat somebody off the dribble, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. It is quick if you do it right. It's not as quick changing direction, but in terms of just being a quick shooter and getting shots off, for example, Ray Allen does this really, really well, so it's very important to learn how to do the hop step. Now, again, this is the biggest concept. Be versatile. You're going to have to adapt during the game. You can't be married to any one method of footwork. So you can't just rely on the 1-2 step or rely on the hop step or, even worse, predetermine which move you're going to make. You have to be able to adapt during the game and just react. So you don't really know exactly when the passer is going to make the pass. So you have to be able to use the correct footwork for that pass and really time it right, okay? So just make sure you know how to do both methods of footwork very, very carefully and make sure you have them drilled down and automatic in your game. Okay, so now I want to talk about creating space off the dribble, and there's only so much we can really talk about in a presentation like this because, again, the key is that you got to watch the Unstoppable Scoring Moves DVD. If you want to get off shots, you got that DVD in your package with Prolific Shooting, and you got to watch that DVD because it'll give you 12 done for you scoring moves that you can use off the dribble. Some of them are off the dribble, a lot of them are, and that will help you beat people and get shots off. And you have to be able to create space off the dribble to get shots off. So really important, but again, it's kind of it's almost one of those unteachable things. It comes back more to athletic ability and your ability to handle the ball and things like that. So that's something that is kind of hard to teach, but we've kind of done our best because we've given you 12 unstoppable go-to moves that you can plug into your game and use right away, which are all in your Unstoppable Scoring Moves DVD. Now, ball handling is huge when you beat people off the dribble. This is really an obvious concept, but it is a huge point, okay? If you can't handle the ball, you can't beat anybody off the dribble. You're just, I've been there. I used to be a terrible, terrible ball handler. All I could do is shoot spot up shots, and whenever I try to beat somebody off the dribble, I just kick the ball out of bounds. And that, if anybody's done that, that is very, very embarrassing. You don't want to be the player who kicks the ball out of bounds. Okay, so just take my word for it. You don't want to be caught without handles. If you're a guard or a wing or even a big man, ball handling will go a long way. And the best resource that I've found, and I always recommend this to my prolific shooting students, is effectivehandle.com. This is a program that you can basically plug in, and it works really, really well with the prolific shooting program. And a couple years ago, when I was still working on developing the prolific shooting system, I actually used the Effective Handle program to the letter, and it made it work a lot better. It was kind of like it kind of synergized the two programs and really exploded the results. So if you are interested in that, it's not free or anything, but I am a big believer in investing in your game if you are serious. So effectivehandle.com, if you want to get a done for you ball handling program that will fit in perfectly with prolific shooting, that is it. Okay, so effectivehandle.com, check it out right now. Make sure it's right for you first of all, but it will be very, very effective when you are beating people off the dribble. And again, there's not too much we can say about creating space off the dribble. It comes down to watching the Unstoppable Scoring Moves DVD, using your go-to moves within that DVD, and getting your ball handling really, really solid so that you can beat people off the dribble. So check out effectivehandle.com, and that is going to be the best resource that you find on ball handling. Now, just a couple principles for creating space that can help kind of supercharge our efforts when we're trying to create space off the dribble. First of all, you need to shoot first, and this kind of goes without saying. Okay, I should really take my own advice because a lot of coaches and a lot of teammates actually have yelled at me because instead of opting, for example, let's say I have a wide open three. I'll tend to try to create space off the dribble if someone's closing out when I really could just, take the open three-pointer and get 3 points. It's automatic, and go down to the other end and play D. So make sure you're shooting first and you're shooting at every opportunity. If someone's hands are down, you hit the shot in their face, make them pay. Never let a defender have their hands down when they're playing you, ever, 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 okay? Make them pay. No one should think that they can ever guard you with their hands down. So if their hands are down, hit the shot. If they're giving you an inch, hit the shot. If they're giving you a foot, hit 3 shots in a row on them. Don't let anyone play you that way, because that will absolutely explode your game. If you're able to hit shots anytime a defender's not, literally draped all over you, they're going to have to be draped all over you, and you just easily go by them, and it's like layup lines, right? You just take it in for a layup. Anyone can, my grandmother can beat someone off the dribble if they're draped all over her, obviously. So make sure that you're shooting first so that you open up all the other angles of your game so that you can score more points. Now, always attack the defender's lead foot if possible. And you'll see in the Unstoppable Scoring Moves DVD, we talk about this a bit with one of the moves. And if someone's closing out on you, which they'll close out hard if you're a shooter when you go through this program, they're going to close out pretty hard. And there's most often going to be one foot that the defender is closing out harder with, and it's going to be the lead foot. So attack that foot, because it's always harder to swing that foot back around than to just retreat in the same direction as you came. So if you can attack that lead foot and cut off his hip and get really close and kind of cut off his lead foot with your own foot, you're going to be much more effective at beating him off the dribble and cutting off that means of retreat, I call it. So you're cutting off his means of retreat. He can't swing that lead foot back around because you've already cut that off. You already got him beat if you take that away. Now, make sure you always get the defense moving quickly in one direction. That's the foundation for every single unstoppable scoring move. And we'll talk about this more in the DVD. But again, always get the defense moving quickly in one direction before you stop on a dime, rise up for your shot, or just change directions and go by them. So whenever they're moving quickly in one direction, you always have them beat. Remember that. Now, the last principle is getting the defense on your hip. So, for example, if we're driving to the basket and we get the defense on the hip, so we get really close and really low, like we always should be when we're attacking the basket, we got to get really low, and you got to get the defense on your hip. So once you get him on your hip, you're going to be able to stop on a dime, and again, he's going to be moving quickly in one direction. He's on your hip, he flies by, and you just rise up for a pull-up and hit it. So it's really hard to guard when you get the defense on your hip, and you'll really have a lot of moves that you can make out of that position once you go through unstoppable scoring moves. Now again, you can't create space if you can't dribble. I'm a huge believer in investing in your game, and it's not expensive at all. It is a paid program, so EffectiveHandle.com is a dribbling program, a ball handling program that you can use to really supercharge your prolific shooting program, because it's just going to help your bounce to pocket speed, your quick release, and so many different aspects of your game. EffectiveHandle.com, that's where you can get the ball handling program. And I mean, I always try to recommend this. I give it my highest recommendation for the prolific shooting students, because I just know firsthand how much it will help you. And I've been a guinea pig for this program. I've given it to players and they've had great success. I've used it on my own, and actually in the beginning stages of the prolific shooting program I used it, and it really supercharges the results. So if you are serious about your game and serious about investing in your game, that's the best resource for ball handling that I can recommend, because it really fits well with the prolific shooting program. Now, basement ball handling, we've given you a copy of that, and that's kind of the dumbed down version of Effective Handle. And basement ball handling is just a really quick series. It takes about 10 to 12 minutes to get through. And you can do it before your prolific shooting workouts. And we've got all that in your gym swipe file in your program. But again, the best resource is going to be effective handle. If you can't do that, basement ball handling is going to be the next best thing for you. So the way it's set up actually is basement ball handling covers one type of ball handling drill, and that's stationary. And there's obviously 4 different types of ball handling drills, but that only covers one. So again, I do highly recommend effectivehandle.com if you are serious about being able to create space off the dribble. Now, I want to talk about creating space off screens, and this is huge for shooters because as you go up in the different levels and take your game to the next level and beyond, as you will if you are dedicated and use this program and you're dedicated with your hard work, you are going to go to the next level and beyond because shooters are really a rare breed, and coaches absolutely love shooters. They love to run plays for shooters and send them off screens and get them hitting shots because really, if you've got a shooter, if you're a coach and you got a shooter who shoots, 90% from 3 in practice, why would you not run them off a screen every single time down the floor? If you can get them open to shoot, they're going to hit 90%. So, I mean, 3 is worth more than 2. This is a big opportunity for a coach. So, coaches absolutely love shooters, and they are going to send you off screens. So you have to be able to create space and know how to come off screens correctly. Now, there's really only 3 ways to come off a screen. I know some people would argue with this, but really, there's only 3 ways, okay? These are the only 3 ways you're really going to use in a game, and that's the curl, first of all, the pop, second, and the fade, third, and we're going to talk about all 3. So, first of all, the curl. Again, this is just a really, unfortunately, I didn't have a defender for this actual video, but it was just actually a workout video that I was doing because, again, same workout, I wasn't shooting well off screens, so I actually went in and worked on it the next day. And I'm demonstrating in this video the curl, and the chair kind of represents the screen. So take a look at the video, and then we will get into all the details. Now, okay, so you saw the video, and obviously you come off that screen really, really tight, and you use this when the defense is trailing hard behind us. So defense is on our back, they're trailing hard, and maybe they're even grabbing your jersey or something. So you come off the screen and just cut the corner hard. You cut off the defense, make contact with the screener, and you cut off that corner hard. Okay, so you cut directly off the corner, and you may have to take it all the way to the rim. So you might have to take the ball and do a layup if the defender's on your back. You're not going to want to pull up, or you can pull up if you get a little bit of space and create space off that screen, and there's a big man maybe in the middle, so you're just gonna quickly do a pull-up jumper. But either way, you're turning that corner hard, okay? And I'm talking about grabbing their hip and spinning around it like a pole or something. Like really, really turn that corner hard. Now, the pop is the second move, okay? And it's a little bit different from the curl because we're not turning off the corner as hard, and we use it more to shoot threes. So take a look at this video, and then we will talk about the pop a little bit more. So as you saw in that video, the biggest thing with the pop is it's especially effective for shooters like you and I. So the reason it's effective is because honestly, 3 is worth more than 2. And I say this a lot, but that's the bottom line. A lot of players say, oh, layups a given and all this stuff. Well, to be honest, layups aren't a given. How many times have you saw one of your teammates blow a layup that's in the lane when they're contested, there's defenders trying to block their shot, and they blow the layup? I would take a wide open jumper off a screen over a contested layup personally, because I know that 90-95% of the time I'm going to hit that shot. So when we come off the screen, we're looking to pop, and it's a little bit more flat, okay? So we're coming off the screen a little bit flatter. We're not turning the corner quite as hard, and the defense is trailing a step or two behind, okay? We're not going to use this when the defense is like right on our back, but we're going to use it when the D is trailing a step or two behind us, okay? So they're trailing a step or two behind. We come off the screen. We got a little bit of space, so it's only going to give us like a breath of fresh air because the screener is going to knock them off their path a little bit. So the defense is trailing a step or two behind, and we catch the pass, do a 1-2 or a hop step like we talked about before, and rise up for the shot. Really, really, really simple. Okay, and if possible, you're going to pop out behind the three-point line again because 3 is worth more than 2. Now, the fade is a little bit different. You're going to do this after, well, if players know that you're a shooter, that you might do this earlier in the game. Later on in my career, most players actually cheated, but we use this when players try to cheat the screen. Now, take a look at the video. It's not an incredible example or anything because it was only, it was really only the footage from my workout, so I couldn't demonstrate it that well. But in this case, we're going to go behind the screen and pop back out. So take a look at the video and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so with the fade, we're going to always use it when the defense is cheating. So the defense has already kind of seen us come off a whole bunch of screens, maybe hit a few shots, curl and pop and things like that. So they're not going to trail us anymore. They're going to cheat and they're going to go in front of the screen. So instead of coming off the screen and trying to go in front and meeting the defense, we're just going to fade back behind. So we're going to cut back behind the screen like we showed, and if you're a passer, you got to throw a hard lob pass, okay? Don't throw a soft lob pass. That's going to get picked off. You got to throw a hard lob pass and get it to the shooter, and the shooter is going to be fading behind, and more often than not, you're going to be very, very, very open, and this is going to be an automatic 3 points, okay? So try to use your teammate as kind of a double screen. So when you come off the screen, the defender's going to run and jump in front of it. So when you cut back behind, there's going to be that second screen by the same person, and they're going to kind of stand there and basically create a pseudo screen, and the defender is going to get caught behind it, and you will be open for the 3. So we use this when the defense is cheating in front. We've already beat them a few times maybe, and we make them pay by fading back behind the screen, catching a hard lob pass, and nailing the shot. Now again, a big key here is being versatile. You have to be very, very versatile. You have to adapt during the game. This is even more important this time than with the hop step and the 1-2 step. You have to adapt during the game. You have no choice, because if a defender knows that you're pre-deciding what you're going to do, he's obviously just going to choose one method and stick to it. So if he knows that you're going to curl, he can cheat in front of that screen all day. You have to be able to read and react, and if he's cheating, you fade back behind. If he's on your back, you feel that out. You turn the corner really hard and curl. If he's a step or two behind, you pop outside the 3-point line, hit the shot. So you really have to read and react. You cannot predetermine what you're going to do. You have to be versatile, be able to shoot off every single method, be able to shoot off every single type of screen, and you will score a ton of shots as a prolific shooter coming off screens as long as you follow these principles. Okay, so I want to talk now about shooting range, and this topic is kind of near and dear to my heart because it's really what separates the men from the boys when it comes to prolific basketball shooting. And I say that because most players can knock down threes, and with some kind of consistency. They might not be great shooters, but they can shoot threes, and it's not too hard for them. But how many shooters do you know can step back to 30, 35, 40 feet and knock down shots consistently? Not many. Now, the players who can do this are absolutely deadly. So the funny thing about range is that there's not that much we can really say about it. There's different ways to train for it, and we're going to talk about that in your program, but there's not really a way to teach it. So I want to get into some of the key principles before we reveal the one big secret to shooting range. Now, the key to shooting range is that the defense has to know that you have that range. You don't necessarily have to pull up from 40 feet every single time, but the defense has to know that you are a dangerous player, and they have to be playing you pretty tightly. Okay, so if you're outside maybe 20, 25 feet, the defense should still be sticking with you because this is going to open up all the other angles of your game, and you're going to be able to take them off the dribble. You're going to be able to beat players because they're just, they're too close. It's easy to beat somebody when they're skin tight to you. You just beat them off the dribble and go around them. It's no problem. So you have to have that shooting range, and the defense, more importantly, has to know that you have the shooting range because that's when you become really, really dangerous. Now, the range opens up, like we said, your ability to beat the defense off the dribble. And there's not too much that can be said about this. Again, when the defense is skin tight, it's not hard to beat them off the dribble. So if you're playing defense and you're up against a prolific shooter, you got to watch out because there's really not a way to stop them. And as a prolific shooter, if the defense has their hand down and you're 30 feet out, you need to be able to let it fly. And this only comes from confidence and training because your coach has to be confident in you to be able to shoot that shot, or obviously you're going to be benched. But you do have to let that defender know that he can't mess with you. He can't give you an inch. And when he takes away the inch, you just beat him off the dribble because he's way, way too tight. So prolific shooters are way too hard to guard. It's really an impossible task. Now, again, like I said, it's layup lines. If someone's playing you too tight, you just go by them, and it's basically layup lines. Now, there's one big key to shooting range, and it's really, really simple, so don't overthink it, but we're going to show a video and see if you can kind of identify this key. And like I said, it's very, very simple, so when you're taking a look at the video, keep that in mind and don't try to make it complicated. See if you can identify that one big key, and I don't think you should have any problem. It's really easy. Okay, so as you saw in that video, there's one big key to shooting range, and that is that the shooting form and mechanics and your stroke have to be the same every single time you shoot the ball, okay? And it doesn't matter if you're from 15 feet or 20 feet or 30 feet or 40 feet, it has to look the same. So if you're stepping back behind, the NBA three-point line or 35 feet or whatever, your shooting form has to look the same. If it doesn't look the same and you're just heaving the ball, you're never going to be able to shoot from that range because your mechanics are just way too off. Your mechanics have to be the same all the way through. If you're getting to the point where you're just heaving the ball, you've gone too far, and you need to go back and train for it and train yourself up to a higher level of range. Okay, doesn't matter if it's from 15 feet or 35 feet; it has to be the exact same. And this also kind of an unidentified factor in this is that your coach, when he sees you shooting really smooth jumpers from 35 feet, is going to have a lot more confidence in you shooting from that distance in games because you have so much range. Now, again, if you can't keep your form within 85 or 90% of your regular form, so it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It should be, but if, I know that my form changes when I go out to 40 feet and I kick my feet out a little bit more, but it is within about 90% of my regular shooting form. If you're not within 85 to 90% of your regular shooting form, you're out of your range and you just step back in and train yourself to be able to shoot further. So what this really all comes down to, again, there's not that much that we can really teach when it comes to shooting range, and it all comes down to your technique and mechanics, first of all, your stroke and how solid your mechanics are, and getting your feet really solid with the ground and all 10 toes pointed toward the basket and all that kind of stuff that we talked about in the stroke portion of the video. You have to get that all down perfect to be able to step out and shoot from, distance. Now, it also comes down to your training and your program. And your 16-week prolific shooting program is designed to help you with your shooting range. And if you go through that program, you're going to have a lot more success as a shooter because you're going to have a lot more success as a shooter because you're going to have gone through all the different progressions and progress seamlessly through from 15 feet, all the way out to 20, 25, 30 feet, and you're going to have a lot easier of a time shooting from that range. Okay, so all it comes down to is technique and mechanics and also your program. So make sure that you're addressing those two things, and you will be successful as a range shooter. Okay, so last but not least, I want to talk about something I call the art of the quick release. And players with a deadly lightning quick release are really, they're just deadly, to be honest. No defender can really guard a release that's very lightning quick because it opens up so many different angles of your game. If you can chop half a second off the time it takes you to shoot off a screen, or the time it takes you to go from the bounce to the pocket off the dribble, you're really going to get a lot more shots off and really never get blocked. And this is a really valuable skill to learn. So there's three major components to a quick release. And number one is your bounce to pocket speed, the speed that you can take the ball from the bounce, from the dribble, and put it in the shooting pocket. And we talked about the shooting pocket already, that kind of C angle. So you want to be able to take it from the move, from the bounce, off the ground to the shooting pocket with a lot of speed. Now, the next component is the catch to pocket speed, and this is what we're talking about when we this is what we're doing when we catch the ball and go off the catch as opposed to off the dribble. We need great catch to pocket speed. So how fast can you take the ball from the triple threat position or catch it in the actual shooting pocket and get the ball to the shooting pocket? So how fast is your catch to pocket speed? And number three is your ability to shoot from the pocket. So you have to be able to catch the ball in the shooting pocket and shoot it with basically the same mechanics and the same form as you would if you were shooting off the dribble or off the catch out of the triple threat. So your ability to shoot from the pocket is trained within your program, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Just make sure that you're not bringing the ball down if you catch it in the pocket because you need to be shooting out of that spot. So a couple keys to a lightning quick release. Smooth mechanics are huge, and there can't be any hitch in your shot. A lot of players have a hitch at the top of their jump and when they kind of pause with the ball. You absolutely cannot have this. It has to be completely smooth from the bounce, from the catch, wherever you're taking it from, all the way up to the pocket, but smooth through the pocket and into your follow through and hit the shot. Okay, so you have to have smooth mechanics. You can't have that hitch because it can add, even a fraction of a second could get your shot blocked. Now, again, drop, don't hop. Now, with this, we talked about this earlier with the hop step, and you can't be hopping through the air on your footwork. You have to be dropping for out of that one step and dropping into that squat. And the same goes when you're shooting. You can't, jump into that squat position. You have to just drop and practice dropping really quickly into that squat position when you're shooting. Now, again, I can't emphasize this enough. We've talked about this so much because it's so important, and I don't know how to get this point across any more. I don't know how to get this point across any harder because we've talked about it so much. But ball handling ability is huge, and again, Effective Handle, if you're interested, is the best ball handling program that you can use. But whatever you do, make sure that you're developing your ball handling ability, because that will absolutely supercharge your bounce to pocket speed. And if you can't control the ball from the bounce to the pocket, you're going to be dead as far as a quick release goes. So ball handling ability is huge when it comes to developing a quick release. Now, what it really comes down to, and we don't have a video in this section because it really doesn't come down to any different teaching points. You can't really demonstrate a quick release. You've already obviously seen me shoot 100 times. So what it really comes down to is your technique and your mechanics, and again, your program and training. It's similar to your range, because there's not that much we can teach when it comes to quick release besides, the smooth mechanics and no hitch and dropping instead of hopping. There's really not that much else we can teach. It comes down to your technique and your mechanics. They have to be smooth. They can't have a hitch. And again, your program and training. And you don't have to worry about the programming and training because your prolific shooting program takes care of that. But again, it has to be sound. It has to be focused on those 5 key principles so that you can develop your lightning quick release and dominate defenders.
Okay, so this marks the end of our first video, Prolific Shooting Exposed, and I hope you got a lot out of that. You can kind of see the different factors that we really have to focus on while we're training. And I know it was pretty long, but again, they're fairly basic principles, and you should be able to take them right away. And when you're in the gym later today, focus on them during your 16-week program. Now, the first step you want to take right away after watching this video, well, first of all, you want to go to effectivehandle.com and decide if that program is right for you. If it is, then choose to invest in the program. If it's not, then we also have basement ball handling that you can use. But right away, you're going to need to decide on a ball handling solution to use during prolific shooting during the 16-week program. So decide on that right away, because it's a very, very important part of the entire program. Now, after you do that, you're going to want to go over and watch Unstoppable Scoring Moves. So that's the second component to your DVD package, and you're going to want to do that right away, because there's 12 moves in there that you can take and use right away in games to create space off the dribble, and that's the second DVD that you're going to want to watch. Okay, so take a look at that DVD, go over to effectivehandle.com, decide on your ball handling solution, and we'll get the process kind of rolling. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this video. Take a look at Unstoppable Scoring Moves, and I will see you in that video. Thanks.